Okay, in this video 4, we're going to go over how I built the map to where you don't actually have to go through and insert, like 16,000 different entries. You notice I got this commented out because as soon as you comment this out, this thing's going to build this huge map system. So you need to be careful where you run this. And the reason why I left it in map is because every time you create a new map, like let's say a ruins or your mainland or a branch off your mainland, you're going to have to run this for that map. And you're just going to have to change the name right here. But what this does is it basically takes for I equals 1, and this is where you set how many rows and how many columns you want. So right now it's set for 30 by 30. You can set it to 10 by 10, 5 by 5, 1 by 1, 100 by 100. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could do it. But that's basically, this is where you define it. So then the next thing we do is insert into map, map R, map C values, the row and the column, and then just keep doing it until it's done. And all that does is that builds your map and sets 1 1 1 2 1 3 all the way up to 45 45. When you run it, give it a second. It takes a while because it's building a lot of different squares in there. The one thing that you need to change here is, if you notice in my database, or in our database, you have all these other things. You need to define these. So you might as well define it. There's two ways you can define it. You can set it up as a default in the actual when you build the table. So if we go into our structure real quick, you notice that I set up the default. That way when it builds, it automatically defaults to that. You have to default the creature name to none unless you want a creature on every single square for it to work right, because it looks for none, or it looks for a null value there. Same way with the killer who killed it last, and the killer we'll talk about in a minute. Basically, just as a quick run through of what it does is, if you're fighting a creature and someone else kills it while you're in the middle of killing it, it tells you, hey, this person killed it before you did. But you need to set those to none. Your tiles you need to set. You'll see how it's done in the basic one, but you need to change these. Now let's say that you're making a ruins that's really hard and you want the creature, or even you're in a caves and you want the mining higher or lower than the other. Then you can set the default of whatever you want it to, and you can set it here, or you can set it right here and just put insert into map, and then just put here is where you would add mining and then whatever number it might be. So let's say I wanted mining like 50, then I would just put mining. That is our stat name, right? Yeah, mining. And then I would just put, let's say we want 50, and then that way it'll make it 50 every time. Now here's what you can do to make things even more dynamic. You can come in here and put a random, just put trees equals rand 0 through 100, and then what we can do is, let's say we have if trees is greater than 90, then let's copy this, and I'm going to keep this other stuff edited out, but let's just pretend that all this isn't here, that it's not all commented out. Basically what I'm doing, let's not do that. Let's leave that commented out. So basically now what you could do is, if the trees is greater than 90, then you can make the tile equal trees 1. Let's say you had a tile named trees1.png that you wanted randomly, and this is how I set up mine, because if you notice in my map, I have these trees everywhere, and ponds and stuff like that, and this different dirt. I didn't go through there and manually put those in there. There's way too many. What I did was I did this right here. If trees is greater than 90, then randomly throw in a trees. That means that 10% of your tiles are going to become trees. And then you could come in here and put another one, and then do the same thing. Put water. You just do water is random. whatever you want the percentage of water. If it's not trees, if it's not water, then else it's going to be plain old grass. Simple enough. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and keep this in here for you guys whenever I put the code, just so you guys can use it as an example. I'm going to comment it all out though, otherwise it's going to goof. So remember that when you go to build the map. This is very, very important when you go to build this map. Okay, moving on. Now we're going to go to our login. Basically all this is just a logout. I actually probably should have called it logout, but it just puts our logout button right there. You may want to move that around. I know it's in an ugly spot, but that's up to you. It's your game. Last thing is the player butt. No, it doesn't mean the actual player butt. It's the player button. Basically, this is if any other players are in this location. Notice there's not one. Now all of a sudden there's players. All it does is it selects name from players where the map equals R and the map equals C. So what this does is it goes through all the players where map row and column row equals the same as the player. So you notice how this is 4-4 or whatever it might be. If I'm standing there, it's going to show it. So that's how it knows that other players are in the location. And basically, if there is something there, if the name does not equal null, then other players.php, and then there are other players in this location, and that's where the link actually pops up and says there's other players in the location. And let's just check on something. If you notice, there's a whole bunch of players here. I'm actually playing from the live site, so that's why mine's actually going to look a little different than the database I'm showing you, because the database I'm showing you is not the live. I didn't want to put people's passwords and accounts in there and stuff like that. But that's why you're seeing players here.